So Dianna Russin, she had a very, very interesting quote, which read, I had a GM at the Senior Bowl who mentioned to me Vrabel's physical ability. He's a very large human being and can be very intimidating to people in an organization that are going to be part of these decisions. And that is a factor on why he wasn't signed as a head coach.
This is something the GM said to her?
A GM at the Senior Bowl.
That is the craziest comment I have ever heard. I have never heard anything like that.
Our team's going to regret not signing Vrabel to be their next head coach.
Football players are big for most of the time, right? They're big guys. So having a big guy as your head coach might be a good thing. It could be inspiring to people. Maybe not to the front office wusses that are overweight and haven't been out on the treadmill very often, right? Maybe that would be intimidating to them, but to the players, I don't think there's any issue there. I think that doesn't mean anything to them. And I think it's one of the weirdest comments I've ever heard.
I think it's very, very fascinating that because of Mike Vrabel's physical size, that was one of the determining factors on whether or not he would be a head coach of a team. Because, let me read the quote again. Because it can be very intimidating to people in an organization that are going to be part of these decisions. What about Dan Campbell?
I mean, he's a big dude.
Dan Campbell's a massive dude.
Yeah.
Who played linebacker, and
I thought he was a tight end.
He might have been a tight end. But
I think he's a tight end.
But yeah. Dan Campbell is all over the place with his emotions. Mike Vrabel is a much more monotone guy. You don't see him going off and saying biting kneecaps off or whatever, having so much passion. I don't understand why the Lions were perfectly fine with signing Dan Campbell, but an organization wouldn't sign Mike Vrabel. Also, if you're intimidated by him, how about you just look at his reputation as a head coach?
He's a player's coach.
He had, four out of 6 winning seasons? Made the playoffs a number of times, won a couple playoff
55
games.
55 wins so far in his career.
So I don't understand that because of his size, he would be intimidating to the front office staff because they would be involved in making decisions. I think I agree. This is a crazy comment. This is honestly one of the craziest comments I've ever heard a GM say when talking about the hiring of anybody, whether it be a player, whether it be a coach. I've never heard something like this where a guy who's how big is Mike Vrabel? Mike Vrabel is 6'4", 260. Dan Campbell, I'm genuinely curious. Dan Campbell is 6'5", 265. So he's bigger.
Huh.
And yet nobody talked about, Dan Campbell's too big to be the head coach of any team.
It's the weirdest comment I've ever heard. I've never heard anybody say anything like that before.
And it's the question:
that somebody would be intimidated by what was one of the better football players of his era, right? And as a linebacker, Mike Vrabel was very good. Why they would look at him and say, "Wow, you're too big. I'm scared of you, and we're not going to hire you." That's odd.
I don't understand it personally. I would just take a look at the body of work and what he's done for an organization.
No punt, no play on words there. His body of work.
Yeah, that's a good one. The unintentional pun there. But yes, 4 out of 6 winning seasons, made the playoffs a couple of times, won a few playoff games.
Yeah, with a quarterback that is kind of questionable.
Ryan Tannehill, yeah. Very, very weird. And not only that, players love the fact that he's a very player's coach.
Yeah.
He built a great culture in Tennessee. And for this to be a factor, whatever team said that, they're going to regret not signing him. I don't care who it is. Whether it be the Commanders, whether it be the Seahawks, whether it be whatever team didn't sign him. I think it's going to be a mistake.
Mm-hmm. I see him.
Maybe the Chargers because they have Jim Harbaugh. But
I would say he gets a job next year.
I would assume so as well, but I have no idea. Belichick wasn't signed. Carroll wasn't signed. Vrabel wasn't signed this coaching hire. I honestly,
Pete Carroll, he'd like to have another job. He says, I'm ready to go. He says,
right.
I've got all kinds of energy.
He wanted the Chargers job.
Yeah.
I think, truthfully, the Panthers probably regret it the most. They signed a first-time offensive coordinator who that was his first time in a major coordinator role or a major coaching role. And all of a sudden, he went from 1-year OC to now head coach.
The first time he'd ever called the plays.
The first time he was ever in a significant coaching role. That wasn't like a quarterback's coach.
And he got a head coaching job.
First time OC. Now all of a sudden he's become the head coach of the Carolina Panthers.
They're counting on him bringing Bryce Young along.
That's what the hope is.
Because he's done well with other quarterbacks that he's coached, right? Russell Wilson.
I believe I believe he coached Herbert as well. I might be wrong. Geno Smith. That's what it is.
Geno Smith, Player of the Year.
Exactly. And now it's Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, and now potentially Bryce Young. I think that was. I don't think that was a good hire. I think I graded it a C-, C+. I think it was somewhere in the C's because I think it wasn't the best option out there.
I think it's risky because he hasn't shown that he could kind of coach the whole team.
Right.
It's all about him coaching the quarterback, and that's it. I don't know.
I don't like it at all.
It's a bigger job than that for sure.
Absolutely. I still can't get over if Dianna Russin legitimately had a GM tell her this.
Maybe she's making it up.
I'm concerned for whatever GM this is because they're intimidated by Mike Vrabel's size. How about you look at his actual what he's done for an organization?
Look at the body of work, right, Nate?
That's what I mean. I don't get it. I genuinely don't get it.
Neither do I.
You're afraid of his 6'4", 261 frame. Is that 6'4", 261? Yeah. I don't get it. Andy Reid. Look how big Andy Reid is.
I know.
I don't get it personally. But hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, if you want to check out the full episode, make sure you click the I in the top right-hand corner right now. If you want to listen to this show anywhere you go, make sure you go to anchor.fm/The Harvey Hour or anywhere you get your podcasts.